Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. She was featured in People magazine's 100 Most Beautiful People, an actress, entertainer, model, and TV personality. Sometimes she's just referred to as number 9, as she was a case model on Deal or No Deal, and the author of her brand new book, Dream On, Now Deliver, the no-nonsense guide to achieving success in the entertainment industry. We welcome back to the show my friend, Painiota Kara Musis, also known as Patricia Kara. How are you, Patricia?
Caught me off guard there. I'm good. How are you?
I am well. It's fun to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me back.
You're welcome. Listeners,
now you know my Greek name.
Listeners, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I've already done a show with Patricia, and if you missed it, that's okay. I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you can get her entire background. But on this show, we're going to talk about her book, which is about her experiences of getting involved in the business and building a career. The title, Dream On, Now Deliver, DOND, which is Deal or No Deal. I said she gets referred to as number 9, and I'm not kidding you. 9 is always with Patricia. Whenever I talk to her or we text, it's always something with 9. And believe it or not, this book has, you guessed it, 9 chapters. They include small jobs, agents, photos, auditions, rejection, money, on the job, and PR with some marketing in it. The last time we talked, you were working on this book then. So how long have you been writing this?
Oh, goodness gracious. Probably for the last 25 years. I've been wanting to write this for the last 25 years. I would say, give or take the last 5 to 10 years, I would just start jotting notes. And then this last year, took all my notes, put it together and really worked on it. So fully, this last year was the year I got it done. And I have to say, hearing you talking about it and doing this right now, this is one of the first interviews I've done for the book. So it's so exciting to hear Deal or No Deal too, but Dream On, Now Deliver.
It is an awesome title, but I think when we talked last time, you had mentioned something about Showbiz Whiz. Was that a title you were thinking about at one time?
At one time, so when we were at the height of the show back in 2007 is when I came up with Dream On, Now Deliver. And then during COVID times, I was thinking about doing a membership site and I was going to call that Showbiz Whiz. And I was like, well, I can combine the two, but Dream On, Now Deliver was my first instinct. So as much as I love Showbiz Whiz, and maybe I'll do something with that, Dream On, Now Deliver one.
All right, listeners, here's how you get it, because you're going to be able to buy this book. But it's available for pre-order on Amazon. It will be released in paperback in January of 2024. But just go pre-order like 12 copies. Patricia's not going to get mad if you do that. Trust me. It's okay. Or you can go to her website, patriciakara.com. Here are some questions I want to ask you for our listeners, because I'm sure they're covered in the book. And you can kind of give a little bit of insight at what's going on. But how did you adapt to such a highly competitive industry?
How did I adapt? I feel like I'm one of those people that adapts to everything. I'm a chameleon. I kind of can fit right in, and I'm a great listener. I'm very observant, very aware. So I think all those things together, I was able to make it work and be in this business for as long as I've been, which has been 30 plus years. Since I was 15, I started this business at 15. Now, mind you, I didn't know anything at 15, but just being able to listen and learn along the way definitely helped.
How much does the word then determination come into factor in that industry?
Oh my gosh, every single day for the last 35 years, that word comes into play every single day. Determination, dedication. You have to have that in you. You get a lot of rejection. And you can't take that personally. I think that's a big factor, is not taking it personally. Sometimes there are things beyond your control. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, why you weren't, getting that audition or that job. there's so many factors that come into play, and sometimes it just has nothing to do with you. So you just need to do your thing and move on and keep going.
You spoke of the word rejection, and I see that there's not just one, but 2 chapters in the book about rejection.
It might have been a typo, actually. I might have sent you the typo. Yeah.
Well, it's okay, because this is the question for
that. Rejection comes into play all the time, so it should take up 2 chapters.
Right. You say not to take it personally, but how difficult is that?
Oh, it is. I mean, that's hard for everybody and anybody. It's something you build up along the way. It's something you have to work at. If you're going to be in the entertainment business, I think any business, there's rejection that comes into play with anything you do. But with entertainment, it's constant. It's almost on a, regular basis, daily basis almost. So you have to build that muscle of not taking it personally and just keep your head in the game, basically. Like, I always focused on my auditions, and I went from one audition to the next audition and just thought about that and put it behind me. Once I was done with the audition, I'd move on to the next. And then I would start booking, because I built that confidence. I built that armor. So I was able to just keep going. And all of a sudden I just kept booking all the work. And you just stop thinking about that rejection. You just start not taking it personally. But it's a matter of time. You need to be conscious of it and build that muscle.
How much then is self-tape auditions changed about getting a job?
That's changed a lot. That's not my favorite thing, actually, I have to say. It's changed everything. I mean, look, we have been out of the pandemic for how long now? And we're not back at doing auditions in person. It's still, I think people got comfortable. It's not as expensive to hold auditions in the casting studios. So doing self-tapes has definitely changed everything. So now you're not only performing on camera, now you have to be the producer, the director, the actor, the lighting person, the sound guy. You have to play all those roles. And for some people, they love it and it's easy for them. I think the younger generation, especially, they're used to being on camera. Right. I'm one of the, older folks who's like, oh, really? I got to do this. But I do it as part of my work. It's part of my business. And you have to be ready to, you have to evolve with everything. So I just keep that in mind and I evolve and do the self-tapes.
So how difficult is it, and was it for you to grasp that you personally are the business?
I've always thought that. I don't know how maybe it's because I had 2 older sisters, and my one sister specifically, I think she ingrained the business side of me, and my mom was such a hard worker. So I always had that business acumen, that business side of me. And thank God I had that. I had that from, strong women in my life that were really smart and business women. So at a young age, I always thought about that. I always took that into account and always treated the entertainment business as a business. I always looked at, the auditions, the jobs, and just everything was very business minded for me. And it's not for a lot of people. And again, that's something you need to learn. Listening and learning is key. When you get on a set, ask the questions. When you get to an audition, if there's something you don't know, ask those questions. Again, with any job, I think people are afraid sometimes to say anything or ask anything because they think, oh, I'm going to look stupid or that I don't know. But it's better to ask and learn than not say anything at all, and people end up realizing you don't know. It's just always better to ask and not be shy, and you'll know better for the next time.
In most people's profession, they go to a place and that is their job. They work for a company, they work for whoever it is, and they're doing a job for somebody else. In your industry, you as a person individually, you are the business. You're in an industry, but you as an individual, correct, as a human, are the business. So it's, for somebody that's not in it, may look at it and go, what do you mean? Wait, but that's exactly what happens. You as a model, as an actress, as an entertainer, you personally are the business. You're just in an industry.
Yeah, I run Patricia Cara. I run Cara Entertainment.
Right.
But then I do have my clients and I do business with different companies, all these different companies, but I am my own business. So yeah, that's definitely true. I'm like, where's there a question there? Other than, yeah, it is a business. You are the business.
You are. How crippling is this business? How much does this business continue to knock you down?
All the freaking time.
All right, then let me rephrase it. Have you ever had an easy booking in your life?
I've had easy.
You have?
Well, I wouldn't say easy. Some are easier than others. But easy, no. Fun, a lot of fun, some challenging. Every job is very different. Again, some harder than others. Some really take a lot out of you. And for the most part, I try to enjoy whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's the modeling side of it, the acting, the hosting. A lot goes into it that people don't even realize that go on behind the scenes. There's so many aspects to having a shoot, a photo shoot or a commercial shoot. So it can be tough, but yeah, you make the most of it. I mean, it's not a 9 to 5, so I love it. So I find it easy in that regard because I love what I do. I get to play a different role all the time. So that to me is very exciting.
The book is Dream On, Now Deliver. It has 9 chapters available for pre-order on Amazon. It'll be released in January 2024. If you're thinking about getting into this industry, you have to have this book that Patricia wrote. Excited. She's all excited now. But let people out there going, okay, I might want to get in this. I'm going to buy this book. But then tell them, what is the ease? And I'm guessing it's not easy. It's more difficult to finding and securing an agent that works right for you.
That is a process. And that's the number one thing I get asked is, how do I get started in the business? How do I find an agent? And that was my big thing. When I started at 15, I was like, where do I begin? And finding an agent is not easy. And especially now, because I feel like there's more competition. I think now you have your influencers as well and reality shows. So it's definitely more challenging. It's definitely, you're up against a lot more people. But you have to really just go after it. If this is truly what you want, you're not going to take no for an answer. You're going to get a lot of no's till you get to that yes. Eventually, you're going to get a yes. So you have to stick it out. It could be, you might get a yes immediately. Some people have had that luck. For me, it took a little while. And even when you find an agent that you think, okay, great, I have an agent, may not be the right one. You might end up with an agent that doesn't get you out on auditions a lot. You have to start gauging it. And the more and more you learn about the business, the more and more you'll realize what's going on, what works for you, what you have to do better, what you have to do next. Do you have to up your game with auditions? Maybe it's you might be getting the auditions, but you're not getting the bookings. So there are a combination of things that you have to look at and take into account and figure out, what do I need to do to get to the next step, the next level? And if that agent isn't working for you, if you're with an agent that's not working for you, then seek out another agent. Talk to your agent, first of all, before you even drop your agent. Like once you get one, you're like, this isn't working. Have a conversation and see if anything changes. And if it doesn't, then you move on and seek out a newer agent. There are many agents. It's just a matter of time to find the right ones. And there's an agent for everything. So I have agents. I have one for my modeling for print. I have one for commercials. I have one for hosting. I have one for theatrical. I have my LA agent. I have a New York agent. I have a Florida agent, Atlanta, North Carolina. So you have a lot of options. So I would not be discouraged. I would be more excited that there are so many different options that you can seek out and find what works for you and what suits you. And depending on where you live and how things work in your area.
All right. You've been in the business for 30 years. I'm going to take a stab at this. You've probably had an upwards of 75 to 100 agents.
Probably. Who knows? Probably more. I don't even know. Because I started in Chicago, lived in Florida and Miami, New York, and then here. And in New York, I was able to have many agents, not one agent for each thing. I had many agents for everything. So you can freelance, and whoever gets you the audition first. That was the way it worked. LA is a little different, where you sign on for each particular thing, and that is your agent for each thing you're going out for, whether modeling, acting, hosting. So it's a little different. But in New York, gosh, I had so many agents. And then here, I also have my Orange County agents versus my LA agents. So yes, it's up there. And then I'm also my own agent. Just because you have an agent doesn't mean you stop seeking out work. Over the years, I've actually created, I built relationships with a lot of clients. And so there are times where I have people that reach out to me directly after all these years. So I'm my own agent. I just have somebody look at my contracts, and that's really important. That's something I talk about in the book quite a bit, is your contracts and reading the fine print, and really having somebody who knows the language that would look out for you, that really knows their stuff, look at it, whether it's a lawyer or an agent. Your agent should be able to do that. But reread those contracts, really, really important. You don't want to be stuck in something you can't get yourself out of. You don't want to be in a bad situation. So protect yourself.
How do you determine who you can trust, who you can't, who's good, who's bad?
Yeah, that's you have to use your instincts. I feel like we all have them. Some are better at those instincts than others, but you have to use your instincts. And if you feel, you got to really trust that gut instinct. I've had an agent, I'll tell you about, I had one agent in New York who I thought was great. We were booking so much work. I was their top model for the agency. We were killing it. I come to find out he was stealing money from me.
Oh.
And luckily, I was smart enough to, I was doing my taxes. I looked at everything and totaled everything up and was looking at all the paperwork. I'm like, something doesn't add up here. So looking at that, I was able to go back to him and say something to him. So here's a person I trusted, I thought had my best interests, and we had been working together for a long time. Come to realize he wasn't. And then when I confronted him, he ended up trying to make up a story that I asked him for in advance, and he just tried to twist it around. So at any point, if you're in a situation where it doesn't feel right, or you come to realize this isn't what you signed up for, this is, you have to just deal with the situation and move forward and do what's right for you. And unfortunately, these things happen. I've had great agents, and then I've had not so great agents. But you definitely have to trust that gut instinct. The gut instinct. You're not going to always be right, but trust it as much as possible. And do your due diligence. I mean, really stay on top of your own business. So don't trust anybody else to do everything for you. Be on top of it too. No matter how many agents I've had, I follow up on everything, whether it's contracts, the payments, the taxes, everything. You just never know.
Here's a word for you that I think people, they know about it, they do it, they don't do it enough when they want to be successful, whenever it is, and that's networking. If you're not going to network, you're only going to go as far as your networking is going to take you.
I love networking. I think it's such a great thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's building those relationships. You can network on a job, and you can network at events. Maybe you don't like events. Maybe that's not your thing. Well, network with, and there are other areas that you can network, whether it's theater groups, depending on what you're doing, what your area of expertise is, or maybe you're doing it all. But immerse yourself in it. Start talking to people. I can't tell you how many times I've met people randomly at an event, and I ended up offering me a job, and I went through my agents, did all the follow up and follow through. And I have to say, like, even for me, which is really funny. I was joking about this the other day. One of my closest friends, I met at the Playboy Mansion, and I ended up working with him. Who would have thought? People would probably be, skeptical about that, but I've never been in Playboy. I never did any of that, but I met this producer who we ended up being really good friends. He needed a host for something, hired me on. So I think networking is really important, whether you do it all the time or, start small. If you're not, if that's not your thing, start small. Like I said, build that muscle. That's another muscle you got to build, especially being in entertainment. Mm-hmm. Luckily for me, I like to talk a lot and I love meeting people. So it works for me. I'm more of an extrovert. Definitely tough for the introvert to socialize as much.
Yes. Here's another muscle that I think in this industry you probably need. And speak about the importance of having a good portfolio.
Ooh, portfolio is very important, especially if you're modeling. That your portfolio is your resume, honestly. So you have to build that up, and that's where small jobs are come into play. If you're new to this, start doing photo shoots, start working with different people, and over time you learn on how to do the posing, that's something you practice. You build up your portfolio. If you have an agent, they'll tell you what exactly you need in that portfolio, because that portfolio is what the clients look at to decide if they want to hire you. Definitely want to meet you in person. They definitely want to see that you can work well with others, but they also want to see the different looks you have. One day I play a mom, the next day I can play a vixen. They want to see, and it depends on the role you're going out for, but your portfolio shows all the different sides of you.
How much do you wish you had this book at 15?
Oh my gosh, boy, do I ever. And I realized that I remember I didn't know where to begin. So I pulled out the yellow pages. And that's how I started looking at agencies and started cold calling and asking the questions. And I found out they had these things called open calls. So you can go and meet them like that one day a week for 2 hours. And they kind of, they interview you and sum you up and tell you whether they want to work with you or not. So I wish I had it, because it took a while to figure that part of it out, learning who's who, what's what. But once you start learning the names, the people, and you have to keep track of all that. And sometimes one agency might not be right for you, but another one is. So that's where you got to keep going.
I'm guessing then this is your way to give back.
It is. Even early on when I moved from Chicago and then Florida and New York, especially in New York, I would see newbies coming into the business, and I was still, I think, fairly new. But if I knew information, I would share that information, agents or anything I, had to offer, even if we were in competition in the audition. I didn't look at it that way. I felt like there was something for everybody. So even back then, I was like, well, I would want somebody to help me. So I felt the need to always, at a young age, to help others. Once I learned the information, I'm like, oh, I've got to tell everybody else to help them out. So that's always been in me. So I felt like it was a no-brainer to do this book. It just took me a while to get to it, for more than I'm a writer.
Has a lot of young models and actresses then been reaching out to you over the years for advice and help? Is that what spurred this book?
Always. I've always had people asking me, the question, where to get started? Where do you go from here? But more so when I got on Deal or No Deal. I was always asked that question, but then it came at me all the time. And that's where I was like, yep, I've got to do this book. I get asked this question weekly. It's just a regular thing, whether it's somebody young that comes to me, or even sometimes the parents come to me and they're like, we have a child that wants to get in the business. What do you think? How do we go about it? If you don't have anybody that's in the entertainment world, it makes it even more difficult to try to figure it out and navigate the business. So, I get asked that question all the time, and I don't mind it. I love helping people and figuring it out. I definitely want them to go on the right track. Like I want to save them from some of the things I had to navigate. I definitely want people to, go about it the right way and not get, into any, there are scams out there. Unfortunately, there are those things. So definitely want as many people to avoid those darn scams.
When you think back of the days of doing stuff for magazines, I mean, listeners, she's been in Stuff, Maxim, Forbes, Sports Illustrated, Cosmo, Glamour. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on. When you start thinking about those days of working in the magazines, what comes to mind?
The good old days. It's funny. I don't think of it all that now. As you ask me, I'm like, those were great moments. I love those moments. Each job was unique and different, so it's all great memories. And I'm not done yet.
No,
so it's exciting.
Here's why I asked that question. It was like a prelude to this one that I did some research and saw this quote for you. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense. So you've been in Deal or No Deal. You've been in all these magazines. You've done all this stuff. But why is not being recognized as one of the things you're most proud of?
Oh my gosh, I just wrote that recently. I'm proud of, I'm definitely proud of being on any of those jobs and Deal or No Deal. But I'm really proud of this book. This is something I've wanted to do for so long. So I'm really proud of it. And I love helping people. That's just something innate for me. So it makes me happy. It makes me happy when I could do good and help somebody else. So that's it for me.
You heard it from her, folks. Deal or No Deal, DOND, Dream On, Now Deliver. Pre-order on Amazon. It'll be released in January 2024. Get your hands on this book. Go to patriciacara.com. I'm going to put a link to that. I'll put a link to the pre-order, and I'll put a link to the first show in the show notes. Patricia, once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I love talking to you, Tommy. Thank you.
You are welcome. It's always fun. Listeners, don't forget the podcast docuseries. This is the month of November in support of Native American rights, of the harsh and unfair treatment of the indigenous community. I did it along with filmmaker Antonino D'Ambrosio. It's entitled A Heartbeat and a Guitar, Johnny Cash and the Making of Bitter Tears. Go to the show notes for the entire docuseries to check that out. Until next time, I'm Tommy Canelli. A salute. A chin chin.